Summary of Inglourious Bastards. Chapter 1. It is 1941, and France is occupied by Nazi Germany. Hitler has put Colonel Hans Lander, aka the Jew Hunter, in charge of rounding up the remaining Jews in France. Hans Lander and his soldiers go to visit a farmer named Perrier Lapidite, because he suspects that Lapidite is hiding a Jewish family in his house, and he wants to personally investigate the place. The Dreyfus family, who used to live in the area, had suddenly vanished after Germany had invaded France, which means they either escaped or were being hidden. When Hans Lander asks Lapidite what he knows about the Dreyfuses, Lapidite tells him he heard a rumour that they escaped to Spain, even though the 5 members of the Dreyfus family are hiding under the wooden floors of his house. Hans Lander thinks Lapidite is withholding information, so he offers him a reward. If Lapidite gives him any useful information, his family will no longer be harassed by German soldiers. Lapidite gives in. With tears in his eyes, he informs Hans Lander that he is hiding the Jewish family under the floorboards. The Dreyfuses don't know he has reported them because they don't speak English, so they don't run away in time. Hans Lander calls in his soldiers and they shoot through the floor, killing all but one member of the family, Shosanna, who manages to escape. Chapter 2. Inglourious Bastards. An American lieutenant called Aldo Raine has recruited a band of Jewish American soldiers for a mission to brutally kill as many Nazi soldiers as they can in France. He tells his men that they each owe him the scalps of 100 Nazi soldiers. Aldo Raine and his men bust a former German soldier called Hugo Stiglitz out of jail and recruit him into their group. Stiglitz was arrested by the state for killing 13 Gestapo while he was a soldier. The group soon become infamous for ambushing and killing Nazis and cutting off their scalps, and are given the nickname the Bastards. When they let a soldier live, they cut the shape of a swastika on his forehead and tell him to warn the members of the military that they are coming for them. German soldiers all over France are terrified of them, and Hitler is furious about how his men are being butchered. Chapter 3. German Night in Paris. It is 1944, and Shosanna Dreyfus, who escaped when her family was killed by Nazi soldiers, now goes by a different name and owns a successful cinema in France. A man named Frederick Zoller tries to flirt with Dreyfus, but she isn't interested in him because he is a German soldier. Later she finds out that he is a well-known and celebrated Nazi war hero who single-handedly killed 250 Italian enemy soldiers in 3 days. He tells her that Joseph Goebbels, a respected German filmmaker and Hitler's Minister of Propaganda, has made a film about his heroic exploits called Nation's Pride. Some days later, under Frederick Zoller's command, 2 soldiers force Shosanna into a car and take her to a restaurant as a guest to meet with him and Goebbels. Zoller arranged the meeting between Goebbels and Shosanna because he is trying to convince Goebbels to change the venue for the premiere of the upcoming film Nation's Pride to Shosanna's cinema. Zoller tells Goebbels that the event will be more exclusive since Shosanna's cinema is smaller. Only high-ranking German military officers and their families and friends will attend the premiere to be inspired by Germany's military exploits. Goebbels then agrees to change the venue to Shosanna's cinema. Shortly after, Hans Lander, who ordered the killing of Shosanna's family 3 years ago, arrives at the restaurant, and Zoller introduces him to Shosanna as Emmanuel, her new name. Hans Lander asks Shosanna to eat and talk with him privately. While eating, Hans Lander asks how a young lady like her came to own a cinema. She tells him her aunt and uncle died and left her the place. Back at the cinema, so Sana tells her partner Marcel, who operates the projectors, that the premiere for the Goebbels film will take place in their cinema. Marcel is disturbed by the fact that they will be hosting Nazis, but she tells him that they are going to burn down the cinema on the night of the premiere, when several high-ranking military officers and other important members of the Nazi government will be gathered. Chapter 4. Operation Kino. Meanwhile, the British military is also planning a secret mission to assassinate Nazi officers on the night of the film premiere. A military general wants to recruit a lieutenant called Archie Hycox to be part of the mission because he is an expert in film, which is important to the mission. Lieutenant Hycox was a film critic before he joined the army and has published books on European films. The general briefs Hycox on the mission, which is called Operation Kino. The plan is that a German movie star called Brigitte von Hammersmark, who has been working undercover with the British military and who will be attending the premiere, will be escorted to the event by Lieutenant Hycox as her date. And Hycox will work with the two of Aldo Rain's soldiers, who are German-born, to blow up the cinema. The actress plans a meeting in a bar with Hycox and Hugo Stiglitz to discuss the details of Operation Kino. To meet von Hammersmark, Hycox and Stiglitz enter the bar, posing as German soldiers. And while they are all talking, a drunken German soldier interrupts them to ask the actress for an autograph. She signs a napkin and hands it to him, but he doesn't leave and he disturbs their meeting. The British officer, Hycox, becomes angry and shouts at the soldier, but he speaks German with a British accent, which draws suspicion to him. A high-ranking Nazi officer in the bar is now suspicious of Hycox and asks him where he is from and what he is doing in France. Hycox tells the officer that he is from the mountainside, where they have a different German accent, and that he is in France to escort von Hammersmark to the premiere, and she vouches for him. The officer then joins their table and invites them to play a game. When Hycox asks him to leave, the officer offers to buy them drinks first. Hycox signals to the bartender to bring 3 drinks for the table by putting up his 3 middle fingers, instead of using his thumb, index, and middle finger, as a German would. This mistake gives Hycox's identity away as a non-German posing as a soldier. The officer points his gun at Hycox under the table. Hycox points his gun at the officer beneath the table as well, and Stiglitz does the same. Hycox gives Stiglitz a signal and Stiglitz shoots at the officer. A shootout follows immediately and everyone in the bar is killed except for von Hammersmark, who survives with a bullet in her leg. Aldo Rain is suspicious that von Hammersmark set them up on purpose. With Hycox and Stiglitz dead and a bullet in von Hammersmark's leg, Operation Kino has been spoiled. But she tells Rain that Hitler might be attending the premiere, so he decides that they go through with the mission so they don't miss out on the opportunity to kill him. The new plan is that von Hammersmark will wear a cast on her leg to cover the bullet wound, and Rain will follow her to the event as her cameraman from Italy, with the 2 of his soldiers posing as his assistants. Back at the bar, Hans Lander and his soldiers investigate the crime scene. Hans Lander finds von Hammersmark's shoe which he left behind. He also finds the napkin she autographed for the soldier that evening, so she becomes a suspect. Chapter 5. Revenge of the Giant Face. It is the night of the premiere, and the German guests are gathering at the cinema. Hitler will be attending the event, and von Hammersmark, Aldo Rain, and 2 of his soldiers are also present. The men have explosives trapped to their ankles to blow up the cinema. Hans Lander spots Hammersmark and sees the cast on her leg. When he asks for the cause of her injury, she tells him that she got hurt while mountain climbing. She introduces the soldiers as her cameramen, but Hans Lander is suspicious of them all. Rain's soldiers go to their seats, and Hans Lander asks von Hammersmark to talk with him privately. When they are alone in a room, Hans Lander asks von Hammersmark to give him her foot. He fixes the shoe he found at the crime scene on her foot, and it fits perfectly. He suddenly grabs her by the neck and strangles her to death. Afterwards, he makes a call to his soldiers, who immediately wrestle Aldo Raine to the ground and search him for weapons. They find the explosives attached to him and remove them. Aldo Raine is driven away from the cinema in a car with one of his men called Utivich. Hans Landa is now aware of their plan to blow up the cinema, and before he leaves the venue he places Raine's explosives under Hitler's seat. Hans Landa goes to speak to his prisoners, Aldo Raine and Utivich. He offers them two options. He could call the cinema and inform them of the explosives, so Hitler, Goebbels, Göring and Bormann, who are all needed to end the war, are rescued. Or he could do nothing, so they all die, thereby ending the war. But if he allows them to be killed, he may be convicted of war crimes against Jews in the future. So he wishes to negotiate a deal that will secure his freedom in exchange for his surrender and cooperation, so that Hitler and other officers will be killed. Raine makes a call to the commanding officers of the US intelligence agency, so Hans Landa can state his conditions. He requests that the US military records that he has been working for them as a double agent and was on board with Operation Kino, that his killing of the Jews was a necessary evil to gain credibility with the German military, and that he planted the dynamite that killed Hitler and Goebbels. He also asked for a pension, an American citizenship, a Congressional Medal of Honor, and a house in Nantucket. The commanding officer agrees and makes arrangements for Hans Landa to cross into American lines. Back at the cinema, while the film is showing, the American soldiers are trying to get close to Hitler so they can kill him. Meanwhile, Susanna and Marcel are carrying out their plan to burn down the cinema with the Germans inside it. Marcel locks the doors of the cinema and waits for the signal to set the place on fire. Frederick Zola, the star of the film, leaves to see Susanna in the projector room. When she doesn't allow him to come in, he forces his way through the door, and she shoots him, but he manages to shoot and kill her. Susanna and Marcel have prepared a short clip that will be played before the cinema is set on fire. The film comes on screen, catching the audience unawares. In the clip, Susanna tells the audience that they are going to die. Marcel then sets highly flammable nitrate film on fire. The crowd tries to escape, but the doors are locked. The American soldiers shoot and kill Hitler and his top officers and begin shooting at the crowd. Finally, the dynamites explode, blowing up the entire cinema. Meanwhile, Hans Landa and a German soldier, Raine and Utivich, arrive at American lines. Hans Landa surrenders to Raine as agreed. Raine shoots the soldier and has Utivich scalp him. He then cuts a swastika into Hans Landa's forehead with his knife, so that he will be permanently marked and known as a Nazi.